we're trapped between two cults. One screaming mass extinction by breakfast, and the other yelling, "It's all a hoax," while pouring diesel into a jet ski on a random Tuesday afternoon. According to IQ Air, the number one most polluted country in the world is Chad, the African country. They pay nothing to the Paris Climate Accord. Zero. Just a polite, we'll try and lower our emissions. It's a promise. No money. The number 5 most polluted, India. This is different. One of the world's largest populations and a big-time polluter. They're classified as a developing nation, which means, guess what? No financial obligation under the Paris Accord. None. Not a penny. We'll move on. Number 21 out of all the countries in pollutants. China, of course. They're the most populated country in the world. We all know that. They did pledge $3 billion to help to the Accord. Okay, not bad. Guess who is ranked 116th in pollution? That would be the United States of America. While we were in the Accord, we pledged the same $3 billion as China did. So let me ask, why is one of the cleanest industrial nations on Earth, us, expected to write the biggest check or match the biggest check? Hey guys, I'm back again. It is, have to look, May 28th, 2025. Let's talk about climate change. They said we had about 12 years left to save the planet. That was 5 years ago. So if you do the math, we're getting closer and closer. It's funny how the clock keeps running out and we keep waking up to the same overpriced gas and the same fear porn headlines. So is climate change the end of humanity or just another political panic machine cranked to 11? I want to break down the science, the spin, the side hustles disguised as saving the planet, and all the thoughts that go into this. As you know, this podcast is called Stay in the Gray. Sometimes I tend to get a little outside that with my opinions, but I always want to talk to anybody and hear all opinions from all sides. That's the point of the title of the show. So with climate change, or as the media calls it, the existential threat that sells ad space and sunscreen in the same breath, climate change is happening. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not one of those deniers of science. But no, the world is not ending tomorrow either. Once again, we're trapped between two cults. One screaming mass extinction by breakfast, and the other yelling, "It's all a hoax," while pouring diesel into a jet ski on a random Tuesday afternoon. As always, I try and live in reality. Unfortunately, this reality is surrounded by a fucking clown show. Let's start with what's actually true. Global temperatures have risen about 1.1 degrees Celsius since 1880. I'll go on and give you the rest of my stats. 2023, just 2 years ago, was the hottest year on record. And the sea levels, of course, have risen 8 to 9 inches depending on who you ask. To be honest, the measurements vary depending on which expert is holding the ruler and which agenda is footing the bill. But here's my issue with all those. The Earth is billions of years old. We're working with climate data from the last 140 years or so. A literal blink in geological time. To act like we fully understand the planet's cycles completely, or that we're the sole villain in this story, is more than a little arrogant. Yes, we have an impact, of course, but pretending we're the first force to have ever heated the planet is like walking into a 12-hour movie during the final scene and claiming to understand the entire plot. We can research, we can stay aware, and we can try and do better without slamming the panic button every time the weather gets weird. And it does. It doesn't have to be, we're all gonna die. Or the other side, who cares? There's a middle lane, so let's use it. I know the movies get us all wound up. Day After Tomorrow, San Andreas, and what was the other one? 2012, I think, was one. I enjoy those movies. I'm not going to lie to you. I think they're fantastic. Do I think that that's going to happen anytime soon? I don't. If it does, I will raise my hand as I'm flying the plane over the earthquake with John Cusack, and I'll admit that I was wrong. Now, in 2025, you have human activity, of course, fossil fuels, emissions, industrial waste, even the cow farts from the farms that contribute. That part isn't controversial. I'm not trying to make it. But let's talk. Let's take a little walk down the fear memory lane. Back in the 80s, I was just a very, very wee lad. I was told, or we were told, didn't really give a shit, I was 5, that we had like 20 years to act. Then in the 2000s, it was 20 more years. Now it's 2025, and somehow we've still got 12 years left, minus the 5 that when they said it. The bottom line is this is a revolving expiration date of climate doom, a greatest hits album of missed prophecies and overfunded documentaries. And one of my favorites, Al Gore, said Antarctica would be ice-free by 2013. Didn't happen. The penguins are still thriving. Coastal flooding, of course, is a big one, and that was supposed to be by about 2020. It's weird, though, that Miami property values don't seem to care. They don't seem worried about it. In fact, the lovely Barack and Michelle Obama bought a $12 million estate, Martha's Vineyard, right on the coast. They don't seem very concerned about rising water levels. And just recently, by the way, Antarctica saw more ice than the year before. Some will say that's part of the cycle. I do as well, in a different mindset. Yep, more ice, Antarctica. The polar bears in the Arctic may not quite be having the pool parties yet, but the penguins, they're chilling, with more real estate to boot. The science, still valid. The doomsday storytelling, just stop. How about we talk about the profit involved? This is a big one. Follow the money, of course. The green energy industry is now worth over $1.4 trillion globally. Billions in government tax breaks, carbon credits, political donations, climate influencers flying to urgent climate summits on Gulf Streams. Sound familiar? It's the same formula we see in big pharma or social activism groups, nonprofits that rake in donations while never actually solving anything. And yes, I'll say it, on the other side of things, big oil has bankrolled denial campaigns for years without 100% substance to back it all up. So let's stop pretending that either camp is doing this for charity. This is a theater dressed up as saving the world. So who's actually getting hit? That's a big problem. While rich politicians argue over reusable straws, people in developing nations are paying the price. For example, in 2022, Pakistan's floods displaced 33 million people. Wildfires and heat waves, droughts hit some of the poorest nations the hardest. And they have a lot harder time digging out of those holes. It's not about beachfront property in Santa Monica. It's about people with no AC, no insurance, and no choice. The global south is burning while the global north debates meatless Mondays. It's just something to remember. So what are we doing? The US joined, this is one of the biggest controversial topics in politics, whether you're on the left or the right, probably for the last, 3 or 4 presidents. The US joined the Paris Climate Accord and then left under Trump and then rejoined under Biden and then left currently again under Trump. Honestly, it makes sense. You don't have to like Donald Trump, and you don't have to like the idea of people saying that climate change isn't real. But let's get real. The Paris Agreement isn't a global kumbaya moment. It's a financial contract, and like most contracts, some signatures mean more than others. If you're wondering why leaving isn't the same as giving up on the environment, here's some math that'll ruin your reusable mug. According to IQ Air, the number one most polluted country in the world is Chad, the African country. They pay nothing to the Paris Climate Accord. Zero. Just a polite, we'll try and lower our emissions. It's a promise. No money. The number 5 most polluted, India. This is different. One of the world's largest populations and a big-time polluter. But they're classified as a developing nation, which means, guess what? No financial obligation under the Paris Accord. None. Not a penny. We'll move on. Number 21 out of all the countries in pollutants. China, of course. They're the most populated country in the world. We all know that. They did pledge $3 billion to help to the accord. Okay, not bad. Guess who is ranked 116th in pollution? That would be the United States of America. While we were in the accord, we pledged the same $3 billion as China did. So let me ask, why is one of the cleanest industrial nations on Earth, us, expected to write the biggest check or match the biggest check, while the dirtiest, they get a participation trophy for the accord? You can care about the environment and still say, yeah, this deal is bullshit. Leaving the accord did not mean leaving logic. It meant recognizing that real climate action doesn't require subsidizing the hypocrisy of the top polluters. A few other actions that are being taken right now, which we should get behind, is Europe is apparently banned combustion engine cars by 2035. Ironically, a lot of these same people are the ones who have a problem with the biggest innovator in electric cars, Mr. Elon Musk. So perhaps you should rethink key scratching the Tesla or setting it on fire. Get one for yourself. We'll see if that happens by 2035. China, their solar build-out is outpacing the rest of the world combined. Kudos to China for doing that. If we can get solar power to be effective and efficient, less costly, by all means, let's rock and roll. However, it's not that simple. As you see, sometimes you can't harness enough energy with solar power to handle everything. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And CO2 levels are still climbing. This isn't something that has just solved the issue. Don't get me wrong, I love clean air. I want oceans without microplastics, and I'd love to not grow gills by the age of 60. But global climate policy shouldn't be a multi-billion-dollar group project where America writes the check and everyone else shows up late with a reusable tote bag and no homework. So let's cut through this. Climate change is real. I'll say it again. It's not the end of the world, however. The people pushing fear, they're making money. The people pushing denial, also making money. Meanwhile, the kids are being traumatized into thinking that the earth will eat them by the time they get to college. It's not save the earth or die. It's let's fix what's real without screaming, scamming, or setting things on fire. Climate change is happening, but the world is ending panic machine. That's just performance art. It's effective because everybody's screaming and yelling about this still. And sadly, people fall for it a lot. Don't get me started on figures like Greta Thunberg, who comes over here pointing fingers at everybody when she's not even out of high school yet. Who is she? The same people who say we only have 12 years left are still attending these climate conferences in tuxedos after 2 decades or more of being wrong. The same activists screaming about carbon footprints are flying private, buying beachfront mansions, and offsetting their hypocrisy with hashtags. The cherry on top, most of the people yelling, "Trust the science," can't even define what a woman is. So yeah, stay skeptical, stay smart, think about this on a more grandiose level, and we'll talk about it. There's nothing wrong with continuing to research climate, to not pollute our oceans, to be a little bit better with fossil fuels, but to eliminate things like fossil fuels, to just think you can flip a switch and turn everything off at once is absurd. You can ease into this thing while we continue to research it without panic, without sacrificing other things that make life run in 2025. So, as usual, like and subscribe, give this to somebody who's on one side or the other to say, hey, look, let's just come together and be reasonable about this, understand that money is involved, understand there's more to it than just the science, and don't be a hypocrite when it comes to these types of things. So, that being said, stay laughing, stay in the gray. I'll see you next time. Love you guys.
Shadow Street, streets of